The Code 3. A live podcast sponsored by the Marin Fire History Group. All about the history of the fire service in Marin County, California. And now your host, retired Fire Chief Paul Smith.
And today we are at the Ross Fire Station, and our guest today is retired Captain Bruce Selfridge, and he's here to talk a little bit about the history of the Ross Fire Department and the Ross Fire Station. Hi, Bruce.
Thank you, Chief.
How are you doing?
I'm doing great.
Great.
Good to see you.
Can you tell us maybe a little bit about the history of this building?
Okay, this building was built in 1927. It was built at the same time as the City Hall. Architect is a local architect from the Bay Area, John White. He designed this building and the town hall, as well as numerous homes here in town, the Lagunitas Club, Meadow Club, the last building of the Tamalpais Tavern, and buildings all over the Bay Area. I suspect they may have picked this style because it's relatively low maintenance with a tile roof and stucco, and also it looks very similar to the railroad station here in town at the time.
Oh, right.
And looking at buildings he's designed, that a lot of his commercial and government buildings were of this style.
Good. It's kind of a Spanish mission style, and you see this in the Ross Valley, particularly the original buildings at College of Marin were that style as well. So,
Yeah.
You said the station was built in 27? Okay. Was this the original fire station?
No, the original fire station was located in what's now Ross School, in part of the school building. That's where the original location was. When that was built, I'm not sure of. I'm sure that maybe the Ross Historical Society would have better numbers.
Yeah. They were around in the early 1900s.
Yes. So when this station was built, they had the chemical engine, they called them, which was used chemicals to propel the water rather than the pump. Shortly thereafter, they got a 1928 Mack. So the chemical engine and the Mack would have been in here up to 46. And then they got a Van Pelt White. And so then it would have been the Mack and the White in here.
Okay.
And in 63, they got an International, also made by Van Pelt, and that was in here with the Mack until we eventually got an engine built by Beck Apparatus up in Cloverdale.
Right. So, Bruce, maybe you can tell me a little bit about the building we're in. I see it's got its two bays like we talked about before, and these are obviously roll-up doors we're seeing today. What did we have here before?
Well, if we open the doors, you can see the remnants of the hardware. Originally, the doors were hinged and they would swung out. Been hinged doors on either side of the opening, they'd swing out. When I started working here, it was a door that looked very similar to this, but it was wooden. And they would go up, roll up just like these do. And there's actually the parts off those old doors I used to make shelves or a hose room was. So they are about the fifth generation of doors for this building.
Nice.
Yeah, one of my earliest memories of this room and the fire station when I was about 7 years old. My father was on the town council, and he took me down to see the new engine, which is the 63 International. I remember coming in and standing about here and seeing two Van Pelt engines all shined up, nice and shiny, and asked my father which was the new one, which kind of embarrassed him in front of the then chief. But yeah, that's one of my earliest memories of this building was that.
And that was about 1950?
63.
63, okay.
Yeah, when they got the International.
Nice.
So they had the 63 and the 46 White next to each other, both open cab.
Yeah, as was the Mack.
Yep.
Maroon,
Ross Maroon.
Nice. Unique color.
Yes.
Good color.
I wish they kept with it.
Yeah. Well, we're standing in front of here, or in back of, what looks like, to me, an alarm system of some sort. Box alarms?
Yeah, so when a town originally had a box alarm system, they had boxes like this scattered throughout the town. For people to use in case of a fire, because at that point, not everybody had a telephone. It's the easiest way for the fire department to know where there's a fire, as well as the volunteers to know where the fire was and where to respond to. So every box in town had a unique number to it.
Right.
And the boxes have a code wheel in them. So when somebody hit the alarm, it would blow a signal on our horn on the roof. And this box is number 31. So it would blow 3 blasts on the horn, a short pause, then a single blast, then a long pause, then it would repeat that series 3 times. So we would know where to go. Here at the fire station, we have to sit here and count them out to see where the number was, and we come in and look up number 31 on our little list here, and then we know where to go for the fire. And
okay. So you had a number for every box in town. Number 31 was Lagunitas Road and Thomas Court.
Yes.
I know it well.
Yeah, the boxes at that intersection there, on a telephone pole. Later years, we had to remove all the boxes and the alarm wires because it was getting dilapidated, and we rewired the town and just had just a couple of boxes, or a few boxes here in town, and that's these boxes here at prominent buildings and schools and places like that in town.
Nice. Now, why don't we talk a little bit about what this is, what we call this, and how it worked. I'm assuming this is the mechanism you use to activate the air horn on the roof.
Yes, it is. If the alarm came in from a box, the horn on the roof would go.
Okay.
And but we're told the fire was at a specific address because of over the phone lines or something. We would go to our map, find out where the closest box was. Say if it was number 31, we would go down and find number 31, and then we would put up here on the wheel, pull this hook down, and it's set on 3, and it would blast out that signal 31, which will alert our volunteers where to respond to. Would alert the people in the town where the fire was, because we tried to have this list out to everybody so they'd be kind of aware, if there's a fire near them or something, that they should be aware of it, particularly if it's a wildland fire or something. So that's what we called pulling the hook. We would pull that down, and that was just automated. Once we started that up, it was automated. It would just do it for 3 cycles. We could be driving to the fire while the horn was still blowing on the station as we left.
Now, this 31 we just talked about was for the alarm box location at Thomas Court and Lagunitas.
Correct.
Now, if I was a volunteer firefighter, I was off duty, and I heard that 31 come in, was I supposed to come to the fire station, or was I supposed to go to where the fire was on the alarm box?
Well, the rule was at the time was if you had to drive by the station, the volunteer had to drive by the station on the way to the incident, he would just stop at the station, get on the radio, see if they needed the second engine or if they just needed him to stay here at the station. But if you had to didn't drive by the station, you would just drive directly to the call. Everybody had their turnout gears with them at home and in their car, and they just go directly to the call.
Got it. Now, what was the staffing like during the time this was in service? What did you have a paid fire department at the time?
It was a paid fire department. From early on, they had a paid, but I think it was only a single paid person. When I joined, they had 2 paid people, one on at a time,
okay.
The chief and the assistant chief, and the rest was just volunteers.
Got it. So you joined as a volunteer?
Correct.
And then when Ross hired more paid folks, how did that work?
Well, originally we had what we call a sleeper program, where usually college kids would get free board here. They could stay here if they would be here in the evenings, available to us in case we had a call.
Right.
They weren't that dependable during the day, but during the day we had shopkeepers, the postmaster, the grocery store. Those people were volunteers, so we were covered during the day. A lot of the shopkeepers didn't live in Ross, so we had to, count on the volunteers and the sleepers. And eventually, we went to a 2-man engine company.
And that's when they hired you folks?
Yes.
Okay.
Blay and I.
Right. So you and Tom were our generation. Before that, it was just Chief Casson, the assistant chief, and volunteer program with this augmented with the slave. Okay,
Correct.
So we were talking just a couple of minutes ago about how these alarm systems would work and how you would know where the fire alarm was coming from, in town. Looks like you had 50 boxes, 60 boxes, something like that.
Yeah. It blew a horn on the roof of the fire station, but initially it chimed the church bell at the church with the same codes as the air horn. If it was 31, the church bell would ring 3 times, a pause, then a single ring, then repeat it. And we're not sure when they converted from the church bell to the air horn, but at some point they did do that. And the mechanism for that church bell is still around to this day.
And this is when the fire station was down where Ross School is?
Yeah,
okay.
For sure there, and we don't know if it was here. And also this entire system was battery operated, so we didn't have to worry about the power going out and the system failing. We had a whole room full of glass of batteries that powered this whole system up.
Nice. And they were lead acid?
A lead acid battery, and they did take maintenance. We used broom straws to clean out between the plates on those batteries to extend their life a little bit. Ross has always been very thrifty.
Yeah. But, this is an old system, mechanical system, but very, very dependable.
Yes, it was very dependable, and it had relatively little maintenance to it other than taking care of the batteries, and occasionally a tree branch would break a wire, so we'd have to go out in town and fix that.
But pre-911, pre-telephone, this was very, very reliable.
Oh, yeah, and the citizenry knew the system. They knew how to use it. They knew they had to run down the street to the corner to pull the box. Like I say, oftentimes people didn't have phones initially when the system went in.
And then you guys would show up.
Yeah.
Yep.
The entire system worked on a principle that there's always electrical current flowing through the wires, through these boxes. If there's an interruption in the current, that's when the horn would go. So when you pull an alarm on the box, you're interrupting that current to get the horn to go. And these are the ammeter and the voltmeter that would show that system was always being flowing electricity through it. We had volts, but we didn't have amps. There's some places broken wire in the system. We had like 4 different loops through the town that ran the boxes. So if we had a failure in one loop, the rest of the loops would work. And it also helped us for troubleshooting. If we had a branch come down, we knew to look at that loop for that problem, not the entire system.
So what is this? Looks like an old film reel with a piece of paper going through it. Bruce, what can you tell me about that?
Well, every time the horn would go off, every time the box was pulled or we put one of these wheels up there, this machine here would peck a hole in this piece of paper, and this one would take up the paper. So if it was box 31, you would see 3 pecks on here, a small gap, a single peck, then a long gap, then it would restart.
Okay.
And it kept a permanent record of those incidents. And when we got back to the station, we would write the date and the time on the paper where those pecks were, and that would be part of the permanent record. And we had boxes of these reels that had all the little holes over the years, and we had a box of fresh paper that we could put on to rebuild it.
Yeah,
and if you got messed up on your counting the horns, you could just always come out here and go, okay, 1, 2, 3, 1. So we know it's 31. We could physically see it, but if
backup system.
Yeah. And even to this day, when I hear a noise, I often start counting because it's just, for years you had to, as soon as you heard that first horn, you started automatically counting, because if you didn't, you had to wait for the next series to count it out.
Right.
This is one of the original boxes from Ross. It's number 31. We had a variety of different boxes, but they all perform the same job. I think, Ross got a good deal on used boxes at some point, but if you had a fire, you would just, originally there'd been a piece of glass here, you break the glass, open the door, and just follow directions. It says pull hook, down once, let go. Well, and now the horn would start blowing. It would blow that 31 code that we keep talking about. Inside the box, there's a clock mechanism that you wind when you pull this down and sets the whole thing into motion. Some of the later boxes just had a little teeny trip lever, and they didn't have this big one here, so what we had to do is after the call, we go open the box up and we rewind that clock spring in there. But this type didn't have that. And this also has the ability to do like a Morse code back to the station, but we never used that feature on ours. But that little wheel, 31 wheel, is the same as the wheel we put up here, 31.
Original old game wheel cast iron box.
Correct.
In the black.
This is a surplus box.
It's cool. It's cool old stuff. And Bill and I recently did a piece on fire alarm boxes and the origin of fire alarm boxes, the history of them here in the United States. And for our viewers that would like to see that, that's still available on the Marin Fire History website. But to have something like this, the three of us in the room today know what that is, but a lot of folks today just don't know what a fire alarm box is. They didn't have them in their towns. They'd never seen one before.
Yeah, I think all of our boxes were made by Gamewell. This system here is a mixture of Harrington-Seaberg components as well as some Gamewell components.